Hello, and welcome to Other Monologues, the show where I talk. My name is Castor Köhler, and today I will be talking to you about being honest with yourself. So, as always, a quick disclaimer at the beginning. These are my personal thoughts on this subject, and I don't do any specific research beforehand, but rather this is the inner monologue going on in my head, but spoken out loud to all of you guys. So if you want to correct me on some factual mistakes that I do, please hit me up on, for example, by DM on Instagram at Outer Monologues Podcast, or send me an email at outermonologuespodcast@gmail.com. So, on to the subject. Some years ago, I was actually in quite a bad place mentally. This was around maybe 5 years ago. A bit less maybe. And I think maybe I was depressed, but I didn't really go and check it out ever. I just kind of self-diagnosed, and I didn't really talk to anyone about it either. And well, that wasn't the smartest thing to do. I don't recommend it. Please talk to people. But I did acknowledge it to some extent to myself, at least, that I wasn't in the best place, and kind of I just had the opportunity or the thought process of, I think I can make it out of this by myself. I don't need to embarrass myself in front of anyone else saying that I'm not doing well mentally, and kind of thinking like, I can push through this and I can make it out by myself. And, well, because of this, I kind of looked into a lot of self-help stuff. And I promise you, this episode won't be about my mental state and how I'm doing. It will be more about this part. So I looked into a lot of self-help stuff. And there's a lot of common tips, basically, on how to live your life to the fullest and how to get the most out of life and how to be happy and how to feel accomplished. So I watched a lot of TED Talks about this, and I read some books and, well, did some research in general and tried to find stuff that actually would help me and that I could use in my life to make myself more happy. And the first thing that I think drew me to it was that this is like such a subjective thing, because there is no formula for how you're gonna live your life to be happy. Everyone needs to try out their own paths, and I found it very interesting to look at all of these different possibilities, and this is kind of also why maybe this podcast is a lot about self-help. I try to talk about other things about society in general, but this is a reason why I like talking about some self-help thought processes as well. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So in the self-help space, there are those some common techniques that a lot of people recommend. The first one is I think almost everyone hears this as soon as it's something about getting your life in order, is set up routines for yourself. And this, I won't go into it more in detail, but I think this should help you just because you set up a routine and you stick to it, and then that routine helps you get your mind off of basically planning your everyday stuff. So if you have a routine that you always wake up at 7 a.m, you go take a shower, you brush your teeth, you make breakfast, and then after you've eaten breakfast and maybe you watch the episode of your favorite TV series, then you go on with your workday. Then that is a fixed thing in your life, and you kind of do it, and then after you've done it, you can go on with actually thinking more. And the fact that I think why routines help in general is just because you don't have to put any energy or thought process or imagination into how you're going to spend your morning. You know it. You know how it all turns out, and that's kind of a nice, stable thing. So that's just a quick pointer why I think routines help, and you should definitely try it and see what works for you. And another very common technique or tip that is usually given is that you should be around people that bring you joy. Try to rid yourself of the people in your life that when you meet them or when you talk to them or just communicate in any way with them, they kind of bring you down and they don't make you happy. They just stress you out, or I don't know, some reason why they don't bring you joy. And this goes kind of hand in hand usually also with the thing I talked in a very early episode of this podcast. You go check it out. Doing what you want. And this is basically just what I mean by doing what you want is that you should do things that like make you happy. Of course, this, as with people, sometimes it's unavoidable to meet people that you don't like, and sometimes it's unavoidable to do things that you don't enjoy. But you should try to maximize the things that make you happy. But what I always find is a bit lacking in all of these tips and videos and articles of what you should do to make yourself happy when they talk about what brings you joy is that how do you find out what makes you happy? And this is a thing that a lot of people are very bad at, basically figuring out what is good in their life for themselves. And this is such an important skill that I want to talk about it a bit. And I think just be honest with yourself. Try to put aside all of your biases that I need to hang out with these people because, let's say, I need to have some networking because they're in my business industry and I need to have connections to people there so I can get work and get a better salary and get more money. And rid yourself of all these thoughts and kind of think of it more in a way where you just think that, do I actually get enjoyment out of meeting these people? And be brutally honest with yourself in this case. Of course, you can then decide on the outcome of what you do with your results later. But at least when you're trying to figure out what makes you happy, be super honest with yourself and be almost exaggerate basically how people make you feel. It makes it a lot clearer what you want to be doing. And so this isn't also just narrowed down to things that you already do and people you already know. There a lot common thought is that when we're talking about hanging out with people that make you happy, you think of, okay, so which of my friends should I dump, basically, and you should also consider the fact that there might be people out there that you would enjoy a lot hanging out with, and things you might enjoy doing that you don't do currently, and try to think of also how you can get these things and these factors into your life. So this means, for example, just when it comes to things you do, and let's just put aside people you might like as friends later, but just with things you do, go out and try stuff. So if you feel like maybe I would like to play tennis, maybe I would like CrossFit, I don't know, I might like board games, I might like attending cooking classes, whatever, just go out and try them. It's perfectly fine to start a hobby, to try and figure out, is this something I like? And then ending that hobby if you don't like it afterwards. Just give it a shot. And I think it's completely fine to stop doing things you do and things you try out, even though you might get some enjoyment out of it, but it's not maybe worth the money. As long as the decision is based on a conscious thought of, is this something I want to be doing or not, and not just I don't have the time for it. I don't want to, because that's usually just a way of maybe giving into your every person's innate laziness, is just saying like, I don't have time. You need to think through, maybe you don't actually have time for it, but you might want to think through a bit further why you don't prioritize it as high as maybe something else. And that gets on to like doing to the things where you already do them, and you already, let's bring in the people again, people you hang out with already. I think a lot of the things we do and a lot of the people we can hang out with, we basically do that just because this is what we're familiar with. They're already in our lives. It's easy to keep them around. And I notice I've come to think of these things when I try to basically clean my life. I don't know, the same way you go through drawers and throw out stuff that you don't need, the same way you kind of want to do with your life sometimes. And I've noticed I've started to think about these things that have been in a long time in my life as kind of addictions. And when I talk about this, don't get addictions are usually a bad thing, but in this case, I just think of addictions as stuff that I've been doing, and at some point it's a routine in your life where you you need an active decision to stop doing them. So when you start to think about all of these things, you it's like anything in your life, or any decision in general, that you have to think about the positives and the negatives, and kind of how do they fit into your ideal life, or what you want to be doing, or what kind of person you want to be, and just basically how they fit into that. And maybe they don't fit into that, but you kind of want to keep them around. That's fine. Just do it, as Shia would say. But just go through them and think of them critically. Think of them as maybe a smoking addiction or a sugar addiction or whatever. And kind of think of them not as, try to cancel out the factor that you've been doing them and that's why they're in your life, and just think of them almost as if, evaluate them as if you were trying them out as a new thing right now. Because, for example, I have, for those of you who don't know, I was smoking a long time. I started maybe around, what is it now? Almost 10 years ago. Not quite, but a bit under 10 years. And it's something I did for a long time, and then I quit. And then, last year I kind of started again, which was a bad thing. And now I've quit again a couple of months ago. And this is the thing where always smoking is bad for you, and everyone knows that. That's not smokers know that smoking is bad for you. The same way that people that do drugs know that drugs are bad for you, but they give such enjoyment. And I quite honestly, I can say that the reason why I usually keep on doing or keep on smoking if I started is the fact that I love smoking. I think it's nice. I love the break and I love the feeling, but then I usually at some point I start evaluating, is the negatives of all the health risks and all the health negative parts, is it worth the fact that I can go out and have the sensation of smoking? And every now and then I come up with the fact that no, I don't want to. And that's why I stopped smoking. So think of this in the same way in your lives, with anything you do. It might be with your, sleeping habits or the people you hang out with, but try to think of them in that way. But through this all, I think the most important part about, or maybe for me, what was maybe the most important part of me getting better mentally, because over the years now I've become I feel a lot better mentally, and I have a lot more energy, and I do the things I want to do. For example, this podcast is a part of that process for me. Is just being completely unapologetically truthful about what you want, both to yourself and to other people. But at the bottom of everything is being truthful to yourself. So this means, for example, this is a kind of normal case or a normal example that I think a lot of people do, and a lot of people at some point in their life realize that it's completely useless and unnecessary. This is, the feeling when you're invited to a party or an event somewhere and you don't want to go, but it's some like half friend that invited you, and you kind of don't want to go, but you don't have any real reason not to. You don't have any other plans for that evening or that day, and there's really no good reason. I put good in quotation marks because I think personally that not wanting to go is a completely fine reason for not going. But there's no good reason to like tell them that you don't want to go. And I think most people then, when someone asks, "Are you coming?" they say that they kind of lie to them, and they say that, "Oh, I can't come. I have this other thing," even though that other thing is non-existent. And you should stop doing this, I think, because it gives this social construct of basically having to attend everything and do everything possible if you don't have anything better to do. And it kind of diminishes the part where you actually choose what you want to do. So I encourage you, if you're going to do this thing, don't. Instead, just say that I can't attend. Because most people will not question you why you can't attend. There's quite few cases where people will be, at least with adults, I feel like, if you say that they invite you to some event, and then you say that, "Oh, sorry, I can't attend, but hope you have a good time," then they won't ask any more questions. They won't go, "Oh, do you have anything better for you? Oh, you have something more important to do." No, that's just silly. No one does that. Or, okay, if they do that, that's kind of a douche move in my book, because people should mind their own business more when it comes to having to attend these programs, because everyone knows this feeling of not wanting to attend an event, but not having anything better. So if you're going to ask if you're asked to attend an event where you don't wanna, just say that you can't attend. And usually it's a good idea to wish them a good times during that event. That always brings up the mood. But also, if you're a person who invites someone to an event, don't ask them why they can't come if they say that they can't attend. Mind your own business. If sometimes they actually have something, and that's completely fine. But sometimes it might be heavier reasons behind it that the other person doesn't want to share with you. And if they want to share with you, they'll do it on their own terms. And just mind your own business, and let them say the reason if they want to. If they just say that they can't attend, take their word for it. No one likes being forced into going to an event that you're planning. That's just a recipe for a bad time for that evening. And by doing this, you and basically, furthering this example to know more parts of your lives and more interactions with people, try to build a nurturing relationship with people where you you kind of try to nurture the fact that you can do what you want and you can be honest about what you want to do. And not try to like basically force everyone to lie just because they want to be courteous to you. That's just, I don't know. I feel like that's unnecessary in our lives. There's no real reason not to. And try to just bring an openness to your relationships with people. And when I say relationships, this doesn't mean romantic relationships, just any relationship with a person. Because this also drastically lowers the threshold for coming to you and asking you for help or just wanting to discuss different problems in different people's lives, and just basically makes the world a better place. So do that. Have that attitude. So by being honest with yourself and with other people, not only basically do you kind of in the end, through this process that I just described, you kind of do things that you like, but you also become just more secure in your own skin. You become more secure of your opinions. You become, as I said in Do What You Want episode as well, you become more sure in why you do the things you do, because you've thought through them and you basically know why you do them, and you don't do them just per I don't know, just because you've done them always. So I highly encourage yourself to go out and clean your own life. Go through the things and be honest with what you do, and think through them and why you hang out with the people you do. And it can be difficult to, for example, I think it's easier to rid yourself of the things you do that don't bring you joy. That's except for, some parts that are just inevitable. Everyone needs to do the dishes because that's not a way you can live if you don't do them ever. But it's easy the unnecessary parts, it's easy to get away. But it might be more difficult to do with people. But I believe in you. You can do it. You can rid yourself of the bad people in your life. Or not the bad people, just the people you don't enjoy hanging out with. The people that are different from you. So just in general, I don't know. I don't have much more to say. Just be honest with yourself. And because nothing good comes from lying, especially to yourself. And there's no really good reason, or not any reason, to lie to yourself. Other people, white lies exist for a reason. There might be some instances where it might be good to lie to other people, but don't lie to yourself. That's unnecessary, and there's no reason to do it. And well, on the subject of honesty, I just want to say that I will start working full time now. So until the end of the summer, I think this podcast will be on a more a less dense release schedule, just because I don't want to overwork myself or stress myself out with making this. I still make this just for fun and for my own enjoyment mostly. So I will be aiming at releasing an episode every 2 weeks. Hopefully I can stick to that, and hopefully you can understand why I do this. And I hope you continue listening to this podcast and get some enjoyment out of it, or at least learn something maybe, or get your brain thinking about life in general and what to do with lives. So, I guess I'll see you in 2 weeks. Today, if you don't remember, we talked about being honest with yourself, and I highly encourage you to think about honesty with yourself and try to focus on that in your life. Music in today's episode is made by Nuari Hector, and I'm Castor Köhler, and I'm out. Come on.
Lay down your head now and try to go to sleep, 'cause the sounds of tomorrow, they will turn up the heat. Hold up your head now and stay on your feet. You will feel better once you wash those sheets.